right, good morning. We're on 65A at the very top, not the very top, at the beginning of the Gemara, about 12, 15 lines down. We've just finished the Mishnah, which had a lot of details about Chatas Ha'of and Olas Ha'of, and what makes them pigul, and what are the specifics of what you have to do. And now the Gemara will analyze and expand on that. Second. Okay. Rabbi, stop. V'hikrivu. The pasuk says about the bird korban. V'hikrivo. Sorry, v'hikrivo. The Kohen will offer it. Matam lamar. What does that mean? Lefishin amar v'hikrivu natarim nehayona. It already says he offers from the what are these, the doves or the pigeons. It already says he offers them. Yachal misnalev of lo yifchos mishnei paradin. So maybe you would, because that's the plural, you'd think you have to have a minimum of two birds for every offering. Talmud lomar v'hikrivo in the singular. Afilu predachos yavi. You can even bring one bird. Now, elamizbeach v'hikrivo elamizbeach to the altar. Ma talmud lomar hakohen. So it doesn't actually use the word kohen. It's the one second. Yeah, Vikriva Kohen. So why does it use the word the Kohen? Obviously, that's the subject of everything that's going on here. Likbo Kohen. That it means that the Malika is only valid if done by the Kohen. Shiachol, you might say Valodinhu, you might make Kal V'chomer. Uma ben son shekavalot safon. Let's say take a sheep offering that is done in the north of the on the north side of the Mizbeach. Lo kavalo kohen, and anybody azar can do shchita for a sheep. Shalo kavalot safon. So the fact that there's a specific location that the sheep has to be brought, so it seems like we're more particular about the details. So a bird, which you don't have to do in the north, and in shalik balo kohen, so at least the kohen thing should apply. Lomar HaKohen. So, sorry, that the Kohen thing should not apply, right? It's not such a big deal. Like, we don't even care exactly which side the Mizbeach is on, so maybe we don't even care about it being a Kohen to do the Malika. Lomar HaKohen. So that's why the Torah says, Likbol Kohen. The bird offering has to be done by a Kohen. The Malika has to be done by a Kohen. Yachal Yimlikenu B'Sakin. Maybe you could use I think you could use a knife, right, to sever the head. Vidinu, again, kal v'chomer, umayim shchita shelo kaval kohen. Shchita, which you do on an animal, doesn't have to be done by a kohen. Shchita can be done by a zar. Kaval kli, and it has to be done with a knife. Malika shekaval kohen. Now, Malika, which apparently is more strict about the details because a zar can't do it. Only a kohen can do it, so it's more particular. So einodin sheikbal kli, so certainly should be done, with the knife. Lomar HaKohen Umalak. The Kohen, by juxtaposing these two words, it seems to imply that the Kohen does the Hakra, brings it to the Mizbeach and does the Malika. So, Amar Rabbi Akiva, v'chitalo datcha shazar kariv l'gav mizbeach. Obviously, it's the Kohen has to bring it to mizbeach. The Zar can't even come in to the mikdash, right? Of course, it has to be a Kohen. So why does it say Kohen? El matam lower Kohen. Shetei malika batzmo shel Kohen. That the malika has to be done by the Kohen bodily, by his own body. In other words, no knife. It has to be done with his fingernail. Yachal yimlikana ben milamala ben milamata. I might think maybe he could do the Malika like above the middle line, the red line in the middle of the Mizbeach. Talmud Lomar Umolak v'hiktir. Umalak v'hiktir. He should do the Malika and the offering. Ma haktar b'rosh mizbeach, just as the the burning, it has to be done at the top of the mizbeach. Obviously, that's where the fire is. Af malika barosh mizbeach. So it juxtaposes malika to tell you that the malika also has to be done at the top of the mizbeach and not down at the bottom before he goes up. Umalak. More details about this malika, this severing. Mimul arif. It has to be at the neck. That's where you do the malika. Atom mimul arif. I mean that's savar. Maybe it's like the back, not the back of the neck, but from the throat. How do you know you do it from the back? Dinhu. We could get it from kal chomer. Nemarkan malak, nemar lahalanu malak. We have regarding the ola and the chatas of the bird, it says umalak malahalon mimul oref. In the case of the chatas, it says specifically it has to be at the back of the neck. Mimul or po, lo yavdil. Afkan mimul oref. So maybe so therefore we understand that all malikas of all birds have to be bird offerings have to be done at the back of the neck. Imalahon molek ve'eno mavdil. Afkan molek ve'eno mavdil. Oh, you're going to say it's the same. You do the same procedure for bird chatas and the bird ola. Maybe they both have to be not completely severing the head. Tamalomar umalak vehiktir. Because in one case it says vishisal. One second. In one case, it says specifically not to separate the head completely. So Talmud Lomar umalak vehiktir. Mahaktar harosh la'atzmo v'aguf la'atzmo. Just as burning it, the head is separate and the body is separate. Av malika harosh li'atzmo v'aguf li'atzmo. So malika is the same thing, and you have to sever the head completely. Uminayin shaktaras harosh biatzmo v'aguf biatzmo. I may have confused it before. When it says lo yavdil, it's talking about the tearing of the body. Then what I called yesterday spatchcocking. But the malika, you remove the head entirely, as we see right here. Uminayin shaktaras harosh biatzmo v'aguf biatzmo. And where do you get that from? That the burning is the head and it's separate from the body. Shenamar v'hitir oso. The Kohen burns it. Harek Torasa Gufamura. It already says it's burned. Hamani Makayim V'iktir HaMizbecha. Then it repeats V'iktir HaMizbecha, and he burns it, and he burns it on the Mizbeach. Why the two phrases? Baktar Sarosha Kasum Medaber. Talking about like one V'iktir for the body, one for the Rosh. So they're separate, and therefore the Malika, at the Malika time, they're separated as well. And now, V'nim Sadamo, the blood is squeezed out. Kulo, all the blood. Like get all the blood out that you can. Al kira mizbeach, on the wall of the mizbeach. V'lo al kira hakevesh, and not on the, has to be on the mizbeach itself and not on the ramp. Okay. V'lo al kira heichal, not the wall of the heichal of the sanctuary. Ve'ezazeh, and which wall of the mizbeach? Zeh kira elyon, the top part of the wall, above the middle line. Oh, I know al kira tachton. How do you know? Maybe it's the bottom line. Again, it's a logical thing. And a mammal that is sacrificed. The chatas blood goes above the line, and the ola blood goes below the line. A bird that we know that the chatas goes below the line, because we saw that in the brisa yesterday. Enodin shalasalamata. So the ola certainly has to be below the line. I would have thought that. You sever the head and you burn it and squeeze the blood. In other words, they're all linked. But the order seems to be wrong, right? It's the order that you actually do it in is the malika, the squeezing of the blood, and then the burning, right? Why does it say it that way? Obviously, you're not gonna squeeze the blood out after it's burned. So obviously, the squeezing of the blood is the second step. What it tells you is, why is it written that way? To link haktara and mitzvah hadam, that they're both, in what sense are they linked? That they're both at the top of the mizbeach. In other words, the top half of the mizbeach. Okay, what's the procedure? If you go up the ramp and you turn to the ledge that goes around it, you come to the southeast corner. Then you do the malika up there. You separate that from the body. And then you squeeze the blood onto the wall of the mizbeach. So like you bend down and rub it on the wall. Ima Solomata me raglov afilu amma kshera, and uh, and like you could even go down a full amma. In other words, you're still in the top half of the mizbeach. It doesn't have to be the very top. Rabbi Nechemia, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Amrim, Kol atzma ein nase celebration mizbeach. No, everything has to be done at the very top of the mizbeach. Um, It has to be on the very top, and you can't reach down. Maybe now, and what are they arguing about? Abai v'Rodi Amar Tarvayo, both Abai and Rabbi say Osem Aracha al Gabe Sovev Ikabenayo. If you're making uh, the difference between them is if you make a fire on the ledge that goes around the mizbeach. So according to the first view, then it's okay to do for whatever reason you can't have the fire in the middle. Um, then you could. What he's saying is, if the fire is right at the edge of the mizbeach, then you can reach down, to do the application of the blood on the further down the wall, even if it's still on the top half. But according to the Rabbi Nechemia and Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov, you can't. That's not valid. You'll have to wait until somehow you figure out how to do the fire in the middle of the mizbeach, and then there's no reason to have to reach down further. And so that is the point of contention here. Okay, Balul Aguf. So then the Kohen comes back to the body of the bird, and he takes out murasav and osasa, the crop and the feathers, and throws them onto the ash pile. Tanarabana Vesus murasav and osasa. You take out the mura, the crop with the feathers. Zo zefek. That's the crop. Okay, that's the technical term for the little pouch, digestive pouch. I guess it's like under the bird's neck, I think. Yakdir Bisakin Vitlanu. Maybe I would think that you can cut it out with a knife. How do you remove the crop? Maybe you can use a knife. Tamlomar Benosasa with the feathers. Notelsa Notsaima. You take the feathers with the crop together. Abiyosim and Chanan Omer. Notlov and Notel Kurkivana Ima. You take the crop and the gizzard with it. Okay, so these are pieces that are attached. So he thinks that Benot Sasa means not the feathers, but the gizzard. Which is like the part of the digestive system. Zvei Rabbi Shmuel Tana, by Rabbi Shmuel they taught Benot Sasa with the feathers, Benot Sashala with the feathers only, but not with the feathers of the crop. In other words, don't take a lot of feathers, just take the feathers directly attached to the crop. Here it would be good to know a little more about bird anatomy, but I think we can imagine what the general idea. Kodra basakin kamin aruba. You cut and how do you do it? You cut like a window in the bird with a knife, and that way you can take out the crop with the feathers that are still on the skin. Shisa v'lo hivdil. Then you tear open the body, but don't separate the body all to two parts altogether. Tanarabanan v'shisa, you tear it. Ein shisa l'biyad. It has to be done by hand, no knife. V'chein amar v'yishaseu k'shasa hagadi. This is, I think, talking about Shimshon, right? When he tore open the lion, he says like he tears it like as if he tore open the lion. It was as easy as tearing open a goat, which must be easier. But clearly we're talking about a feat of strength that anybody can do it with a knife, but Shimshon was able to do it by hand. So the word v'shisa implies tearing by hand. Lo Hesir Samura, if you didn't take out the crop, then it's possible. Masnisin to look Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. This Mishnah argues with Rabbi Elazar. Titania, Amar Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon. Shamati Shemavdilin b'chatasov. I heard that you can separate the head from the body with a bird chatas, and it's still kosher. My now, what are they arguing about? Amar Chizda, mitzvah chatos of ma'akev now. They're talking about whether squeezing out of the blood of the bird chatos is required. Tanakama Savar Mitsu Chatos of Ma'akev. Tanakama says yes, it has to be done that way. The squeezing of the blood from the bird chatos, v'keva the Mitsu da Ma'akev, and therefore Kavin Masei Ola b'chatos of. um, it would turn out that you're doing the Ola, you're doing it like an Ola, right? If you um, so if you were to do, if you were to, uh, if you were to completely separate the head, then it would be you would be doing it like the chatos the same as the ola, which as we'll see later would invalidate it because it has to have its own type of avoda. But Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov savar mitzvah chatosof lo makev. No, that's not an essential requirement, and so doing it that way is not specifically a requirement for the other type of offering. It's just you're cutting it. You're cutting something that wasn't required to be cut, but it's not like a wrong avoda. Rav Amar, or Rava has a different explanation. Shehia b'siman sheni bi'olasofi kabinau. We're talking about what's the difference? What are they arguing about? Whether a delay before you cut the as with animals, there are two things that have to be severed in the bird, the windpipe and the esophagus. And if you don't do them all at once, both at once, then is that a problem or not? As you know, in shechita, it has to be done in one stroke, right? Most of both of those have to be severed. But what about the bird? Tanakama Savar Shehia B'Siman Sheni. And so, what if there's a delay? So Tanakama Savar Shehia B'Siman Sheni B'Yolosof Lo Pasla. It's not a big problem if you have a delay. If you first do one and then the other with an ola. If you alpha to shaye, even if you had a delay, ka'avid masa ola b'chatas, then then you're still doing the whole bird ola procedure to the bird chatas, and that would make it invalid. Or was a Rav Shimon Savar pasla that it is a psul that having a delay means it's no good. V'keven shaye, since you did the delay, machatich basar b'yamahu, then you're not. It's not like an avada. Abaye Amar, and Abaye says, what's the difference between them? Rov basar ma'akev now. We're talking about whether cutting through most of the flesh around the neck is a strict requirement. Look at Rabbi Zer, Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, and this is the argument. One says the one that says that the problem that the dispute is whether there's a delay in cutting the second pipe of the bird ola makes it possible. The other says that it's the problem. The essential problem is if whether or not you severed most of the flesh around the neck. And Michlal to be in and Rabbasar Batchila. Anyway, but what comes out of here is that you need like you do require that most of the flesh be severed, most of the flesh of the neck be cut through after one of the pipes has been severed. Is that so? Ian Mar says yes. Batanya, we have a brace like that. Kate said Mokin Chatasov. Here's exactly the details. How do you do the malika of the bird chatas? Chosech shidro umafrekas below rov basar. You cut the shidra, the spinal cord, and the neck bone, without having to do the flesh, which is of course in front of the neck bone, right? So as long as you do the spinal cord and the neck bone, then you're done. Until you get to the esophagus or the windpipe. When you get there, then you continue cutting um, one of those pipes, or most of it, and most of the flesh. Uva'ola, that's for chatos, but for ola shnaim or rov shnaim, ola you have to do both, or at least most of both pipes. So that distinguishes the chatos from the ola. Amrua coming to Rabbi Yirmiyah. So they said this before Rabbi Yirmiyah. Amri said, "Lo shemilu ha'adamar Rabbi Shimon ben Eliyakim mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas mishum Rabbi Elazar ben Shamua." Didn't they hear what Rabbi Shimon ben Eliyakim said? Amar haya Rabbi Elazar Rabbi Shimon shamati b'chatasov shemavdilin. I heard that a bird chatas you can separate the head from the body altogether. Umay lo yavdil. So why does it say don't separate? Ain't sorry lahavdil. You don't have to, but it's okay if you do. Amar le Ravacha, Berei Rav or Rashi. So Ravacha said, really, El Miata, Gabe Bor, Dechsi V'lo Yechasenu. So, you say V'lo Yavdil means it's optional, right? So would you say that anywhere else? For example, when a person digs a pit in civil liability and he does nothing to do with karbanos, but the language, V'lo Yechasenu, if you dig a pit and you don't cover it. So it's obviously talking about it's not covered. So you're going to say that, so then you're liable, right, for damages that it caused. So you want to say that it means you could cover it if you want, but you don't have to cover it. Clearly, it means you do have to cover it, otherwise you're liable. So the same thing when it says v'lo yavdil means don't do it, not that you don't have to do it. Where it says what you're comparing civil liability to karbanos hachi hasha, like you're going to make that comparison. Hasam kevin deceive balabar yishale. There, we're talking about liability. If you didn't cover it, then you're liable, right? Ilave hu derami lechasuye. So obviously, by the fact that you're liable if you don't cover it means you have to cover it. You're required to cover it, and if you don't, then you're liable. But in the case of karbanos, the bird chatas michte. Let's see, ksi v'hikriva. It says the kohen brings it to the mizbeach. And there's a different procedure for the bird chatas and the bird olah. Lo yavdil lamali. So why does it say lo yavdil? Don't, like we already know that that there's going to be a distinction between these two procedures. Why does it say lo yavdil? Don't separate them. Shmamina ein sarich lahavdil. Therefore, it means it's optional. Now, mitzah dam haguf. Last thing in the Mishnah, he squeezes the blood from the body. You have the head and the body. You squeeze out the blood from the body. And that's sufficient. So the Mishnah had said that if you're also supposed to squeeze out the blood from the head, but that's not strictly required. Tan Rabbanan, Ola. So here's a brisa that backs this up. Olahu, this is a bird Ola. Alpha pisha mitza damaguf, lo mitza damarosh. In other words, like why does after the Torah says do the Ola this way, this way, and this way, and then it says Olahu, it is an Ola. So what does it mean by saying it is an Ola? That's superfluous. Alpha pisha mitza damaguf, lo mitza damarosh. It's still an Ola even if you left out a step, and we're interpreting that step as the squeezing out the blood from the head. Well, maybe why don't you say it the other way around? Why don't you say, really, the essential thing is to squeeze out that blood from the head? But if you and you should do the body, but if you didn't do the body, it's okay. Why don't you say it that way rather than the other way around? Talmud Lomar hu, Ola hu. Now it refers to like the most of the bird is in the body. The head is you could say is a minor part. So my Talmud, the Gemara explains like what are you trying to say here? Ravina mistabra the rov damim baguf shliche mistabra makes sense because rov damim baguf shliche because we're talking about squeezing the blood. Where is most of the blood of the bird? In the body. So when it implies that you only, strictly speaking, you're only totally required to do one of the two pieces, the head or the body, and it's squeezing the blood we're talking about. It makes sense that what the Torah is insisting on, is the blood from the body, where most of the blood is, and not necessarily insisting on the blood from the head, which doesn't have as much blood in it. And that is the end of the sixth parak, Hadron Alach Kachi Kachim. And tomorrow, David will pick up with the beginning of Parak Zion. Have a
Thank
good day,
you.
everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day.